All right, guys, here we go. We're going to jump into 7.6 notes. And we talked about end behavior and multiplicities last week, so we're really just applying that, and then we're going to do our review. So when I talk about leading coefficients, I can look at this graph and see that both sides are rising here, which makes our coefficient is going to be positive. All right, so degree, even or odd, this is going to be even degree. As you see our chart from the last lesson, both are ending rising for our end behavior. So remember, odd was one was rising and one was falling. And so then our x-intercepts here, we've got x-intercepts at -2. So we're looking right here where it's crossing the x-axis. We've got x-intercepts at 1 and at 3. Now remember, multiplicity of 2 and 1, it's not specific to 2 and 1, but essentially an even multiplicity or an odd. So as we think back, remember this is going to have a bounce, and then this is going to cross. So any multiplicity of 2 is going to bounce off the axis, and then any odd multiplicity is going to cross through it. So as we look at our zeros, -2 bounces off the axis, so that's going to be one of our multiplicities of 2. 1 crosses through the axis, so x equals 1 goes into our crossing category. And then x equals 3 is right here as well, and it also crosses through the axis. So both of those are going to be along with our multiplicity of 1 because they cross and not bounce. So then when we write our equation, here's what we know, is that x equals -2, we can write that as a factor instead, and it would mean that our factor would be x plus 2. Remember, then I would go -2 as I solve to get x equals 2. And it's in our multiplicity of 2, so we're going to put a second power with that factor, and then we're going to write our next two factors. So x minus 1 for our x equals 1, and x minus 3 for our x equals 3. And they're both multiplicity of 1, so we can actually just leave it with an exponent of 1 here, and that doesn't need to be written in. Okay, so looking here, we're opening down, so that means our leading coefficient is going to be negative. The degree, odd or even, well, it's doing the same thing as the one above, where both were ending rising. Now both are ending falling. That tells us that's an even behavior. All right, and we're falling on the left and the right. And let's look at our x-intercepts. So it looks like we have 3 here. Our first one is at -1. Then we have an x-intercept at 1 and 2. So with a multiplicity of 2, I'm looking for something that bounces. X equals -1 crosses, so that's going to go ahead and jump down in here with our multiplicity of 1. X equals 1 bounces. So that's going to go with our multiplicity of 2. And then x equals 2 crosses. So that goes with our multiplicity of 1. All right, so our equation here, we've got y equals, I know it's a negative leading coefficient. We just don't know what it is, so we just got to throw out a negative sign. And then our first factor of x minus 1 is a multiplicity of 2, so we get to put a power of 2 there. And then our next factor of x plus 1 is a multiplicity of 1, and as is our factor of x minus 2. So you guys are welcome to put that exponent of 1, but you can also just leave it empty. All right, guys, there's our lesson here for 7.6, graphing polynomials and identifying those characteristics. So check out the next one for going over that test review.